as Americans in public, we're really boisterous and loud. And so you'll hop on to like a metro or a subway, and you'll be talking, and everybody will be quiet and just look at you. Just don't be kind of like a public nuisance. Too much laughter or being too loud in public. They eat bread with everything. So if you have a bowl of soup, you eat a loaf of bread with it. If you have sarmale, you eat a bowl of bread with it. If you have a salad, you eat a thing of bread with it, you know. If you eat a loaf of bread, you gotta have a side of bread with it. But it's good because the bread there is fantastic. You pay like 50 American cents at the most for like the most extravagant loaf of bread you'll ever have in your life. Just really good, tasty, and anyway, if you don't eat bread in Romania, you're missing out. So desserts are a little bit interesting. As Americans, we're so used to like high sugar and like high fat and cream flavors. There's these things called cofetărie, where like they have all these really fancy looking like cake bits and all kinds of desserts. All these, they look fantastic, just artistic, beautiful. And when you get it, like there's two things you're going to notice. One, there's not the sugar you're used to, and so you're going to go, this isn't flavorful. And the second is you're going to go, this tastes like rum. There's a rum flavoring that they use, senza de Roma, excuse me. But they they love adding that, and so you have to be careful because the rum essence has no alcohol in it. It's just the flavor. But sometimes they put real rum in, and so you kind of have to like be able to tell which one's which. They have a thing called nectar. So they call any like basically any drink that's not water they call souk, unless it has like alcohol in it. And so there's all kinds of juices. We think of juice like, okay, Welch's, you know, it's got this % juice content and then this. No, they have like really exotic ways of making souk. There's like carbonated orange juices and carbonated carrot juices I've seen a couple times. But my favorite type of souk, it's called nectar. We had a peach nectar, and you know, you hear the word nectar and you think instantly like the nectar of the gods. And like I drank that and I was like, this is what that is. And it's a lot thicker, so it's like super rich. The flavor's potent. You take a drink of it and it's like taking a bite into the freshest, most ripe form of the fruit that you've ever come across, and every single glass is like that. It's just fantastic. It's got a ton of sugar in it. One food you do need to know about, okay, and it's interesting. You're going to hear a lot of conflicted opinions about it. It's called piftie. There's a couple different names for it throughout the country. So let me describe it real quick. So for Christmas, they have big meals, right? They say, am tăiat un porc. They butchered a pig, or they bought a pig and got a bunch of meat. And they do kind of a feast. They have tons of courses and things like that. Piftie is where they take the fat and the leftover parts from that pig, and they make like a gelatin mix. And so your piftie is going to have like bits of skin or ear or nose or who knows what in it. And then it's in this like almost like a grayish jello looking thing, but a little bit more consistent. And so of course you hear that and you go, that sounds horrible. And I only had it once, and I didn't know until after the fact that it was actually piftie, and it was a turkey piftie. So you know how when you get gravy after your Thanksgiving and you put it in the fridge, it kind of like congeals and it's really thick and stuff. So it was a lot like that, and then turkey bits were baked with it, and so like there were slices of that. And when it was served cold, of course, but when I ate it, it was actually incredibly tasty. It had a good balance of like garlic and spices in it. So Romanian culture, there's two things you need to know right off the bat. First is communism fell, but you're still going to notice it. Everything's built out of concrete. Everything. So that common image that you get of like communist Russia, like massive apartment complexes built out of concrete. Yeah, you live in those. They're not that bad. The second thing you need to know is the Orthodox Church. It's like paramount in their culture. I know in other countries you hear about like the Catholic Church being super predominant and like controlling a lot of things. But I would say the Orthodox Church has a much stronger grip on the culture and the people in Romania. They hold really strong to their tradition. They believe that Andrew came and brought them the gospel, and that they've had the church since. So they got their roots like from one of the 12. So they stick to it. But because of that, a lot of their culture reflects around both these things. There's a kind of rift in generations. The older generation, you'll see a lot of the thought process rotates around the communism, and the younger generation's more like free and ecstatic and more. We use a word called schmecker, and it means kind of like a smart aleck. But it's because there's these like conflicting. There's like a rift between their history and these generations right now. Family is number one to them. In the United States, you know, you grow old, you get older, you become an adult, you leave home, you go make a family, and like, or you establish a family, and you move away from your parents, kind of. In Romania, you stick close to your family. A lot of times, like even after you're married, you'll stay with your parents, just, or they'll move in with you, and you know, you don't separate. They stay pretty close together in family. They really value that.
The craziest foods. Beef day was probably the craziest food I had when I was in Romania. We had one of our English students come to us. I taught English while I was there. And one of the students came up to us around Christmas time and said, hey, we want to make you something for Christmas. So they came up after English class and they had made this beef day. I guess the best way to describe it in English is it's like a pig fat jello. Yeah. Yeah. Which for me isn't very appealing. And so I wasn't planning on eating much, but they had brought plates and forks and spoons, and they laid out the table that we were teaching English on after everyone had left, and like served it to us and sat and watched us eat it. And I'm all like, oh no. I wasn't quite ready for it, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. As bad as that may sound, I don't know. I don't think pig fat jello sounds very appetizing. But it was just it just tasted like garlic. Like garlic, and it was, that was really good. Here in the US, I don't like pickles. But when I go to Romania, oh, I love pickles. And as you know, Romanians love pickled items. The weirdest thing, which was also the kind of the coolest thing, is pickled watermelon. When I went to Romania, I had this for my first few months while I was there. And I didn't like pickles or pickled items. And so having this was very unusual for me. But it was actually really good. I actually really enjoyed it. Romanians, I wouldn't say are very superstitious, but they do have a lot of superstitions. The biggest one, I would say, is what they call curent, which is, in many ways, like a cross breeze. On hot summer days, buses and public transit in areas did not have air conditioning. It's like part of the breeze, the current kind of superstition of it's bad for you. We couldn't open windows or have a cross breeze kind of coming in because it was believed. It always varied too. It wasn't always there was this one thing that they believed about current, but it was just like some people believed that it would make you infertile, so you couldn't have kids, or it would make you sick, or it would cause you to not really feel the spirit as much, or be as religious. And so, especially this is a more common belief among the older generation, but it was just like, oh my gosh, I remember being in a white shirt and tie like I am today in a suit and just holding onto the rail on the bus and just sweating. And then it's like, oh, can you please open a window? But they're like, no. And I remember one time, I couldn't take it. So I opened a window and everyone freaked out. They're like, no, you can't do this. No. And so finally I had to close the window and everyone was like still like eyeing me like, he's going to open it again. I'm like, watch him. Like another one, especially for women weren't allowed to sit on the ground. There could be a pillow in between them or a chair or something in between them, but they couldn't sit just regularly on the floor. It was a belief or superstition that it would make you infertile.
They have things like the 40-day fast where they'd not eat meat for 40 days, basically a vegan diet for 40 days. When you go by a church, they'll always cross themselves. One of my favorite things is obviously the people. They are very blunt and very stubborn. And so I had some person, one random day, so I met him my first week in country, and then I met him like 6 months later. And he told me straight up, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. You were so fat back then. And so that caught me off guard. Like, it wasn't offensive to me, but if you're fat, they'll call you fat. If you have something on your face, they will tell you that. Whatever it is, they'll let you know. And that's so fun about them. And they are very stubborn. But I think stubborn in a very good way, because you can see a lot of their faithfulness in what they do. And if they set their mind to something, they will keep through with it. Also, if you get to know them pretty well, they'll be very loyal to you. They have what's called ciorba de borta. I never had it personally, actually, but it's actually stomach soup. There are a lot of dogs, lots of stray dogs. They're not a problem most of the time. They're generally pretty calm, just sitting on the grass, just waiting around, scavenging food. But the stray dogs are actually very nice most of the time. I haven't had problems with them.
There's always somebody outside spraying down the sidewalk with water, because I think it helped keep the dust down, but to me it was just weird, like jumping over people, spraying over the sidewalks, and it just felt like, you know, people everywhere playing music, dogs everywhere. It just felt alive and fun. And then another thing I liked, in the summertime in one of the cities I was in, Ploiești, our bus routes were different on Sunday because the whole city shut down a major road in the city. They just shut it down, and everyone could go rollerblade, bike it, stroll it, and it was amazing. And everyone was there. Everyone went there just to hang out on this big street that was like shaded with benches, and that was like a major road that city buses normally went down. I was like, I can't believe they can just do this. But then I'm like, why don't we do that here? It was muddy because the roads there aren't paved out in the country, and a car was coming, and everyone walked to this side of the road, and I stayed on this side because I had some really nice boots on that I was like, I'm just gonna walk through this puddle because I had these awesome boots. Well, the puddle must have had like a bunch of ice in it, and I slipped and ate it. Like, I fell on my face, got up, fell again, like I was like a fish flopping around. I get up, I'm covered in mud, I like touch my neck, and there's dog hair all over my throat. So some poor dead dog, you know, another dog they hit and just left there, is in the puddle, and everyone is dying laughing, but all the Romanians we're with are like, oh, she's gonna get married soon. And I'm like, what? And I guess if a girl in Romania starts being clumsy, it means she's about to get married.